Y'all, it's chilly out here.
Yeah. I'm wearing a t-shirt so it's not chilly.
Oh, you're dressed appropriately. Good morning. Oh my goodness, no. These little monsters. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Come on. Come on, Loco. I don't have your bottles yet. Y'all need a brush. All these goaties are losing their winter coats. Good morning, guys. I'm just hand milking this morning. Yesterday was our book signing. My first book signing. It was a great success. We had a wonderful turnout. But yesterday morning, before the book signing, I obviously had to milk the goats. That doesn't go away, just when you have other things to do. So I just got up and got out here and milked them a little earlier than usual. And I got dressed for the book signing first. I wasn't wearing anything fancy, but I was wearing at least clean jeans. But after milking and then feeding the babies and them jumping all over me, my jeans are no longer clean. And I thought, why do I do this to myself? So it was fine. I don't think anybody judged me for having little hoof prints on my pants. Are you running from the baby goats?
Yes. And they are past.
Come on, girlie. You done? Oh, you gonna lick the bowl? Okay. Look how big the little chicks have gotten. Now they don't have the warming plate in there right now, but it'll go back in there before we get these cold nights, these next couple of nights. Hey, Dave. Hey, little sir. Hey, Mary. I feel like a lot of the baby goats have crossed that transition where they no longer look like little babies anymore. They're like preschool age goats. Right, Mary? Here, you want to go get the bottles ready? Thank you. Here's this if you want to take this in too. Good morning, garden. Okay, guys, so my roses are getting covered up in buds, and I pruned them pretty heavily, but I'm not 100% sure. This is getting to be a tight squeeze. I don't want to cut them back though because they're covered in buds just all over. There are going to be so many blossoms on these. Cannot wait.
I can't wait either.
You can't wait either? I love when the roses bloom. Well, we are officially reaching the time where the garden is full of food. Look at all this lettuce coming up, Ben.
What are those?
This is grass, which really I need to dig out the roots, but...
Is this grass?
Yes, thank you for asking. But I don't want to dig up the lettuces, so we'll just pluck the grass for now. Ben, bless you. Look at all the blossoms on the blackberries. You know what that means? All of those blossoms are going to be berries. Yum. Oh, these rosebuds too. These are about to open up with lots of pretty flowers. I'm so excited for this.
That looks like a pig, but it's a goat.
Yeah, the boy goats are over there in the trees. Dr. Ennis and Ross Poldark are enjoying some brush snacks. Okay. Goodness. Alright, I'm shooting this vlog on Sunday, April the 18th. And I'm going to keep it kind of short so I can upload it on the same day. Because there's a cold front that is coming through the southern states. And I actually think it's going through some of the northern states as well. But I know some of you have already started planting stuff out because, like, for me, we're now past our estimated last frost date, but we have a frost that's coming. That's pretty par for the course. That happens. But it can catch you by surprise if you have already planted your stuff out. So I wanted to remind you guys, and I'll put a link to it down below. I did a video last year because we had a frost like 2 or 3 weeks after our estimated last frost date. And I just did a video covering like how to pull your plants through a freeze after they're already planted, and it's called Oops, I Planted Too Soon or something like that, and I'll link it down below. So if you guys are looking at your forecast over the next couple of days and thinking, oh no, what do I do? all hope is not lost. Usually, if you're having a mild frost where it's just like a couple of degrees below freezing, you can take some measures to protect your plants. I'm just filling my bottom water trays up out here. All of these plants are so big that they're like really going through the water. You can see the root systems are pretty intense there. So as you can see, these plants are all really healthy. They are starting to get pretty tall. That's not really leggy so much. You know, the stems are strong, and so they're struggling because they're in so thick, and they're just trying to reach the light. So they're getting tall, and it's not a big deal with tomatoes because I'm going to plant them super deep. That's not really a problem. I do want to show you one cool thing. So if you'll notice here, these purple leaves, which they kind of stand out among the others. You're not seeing that on the other leaves. These are all very green. And in this plant, and these ones around it particularly, you're seeing a lot of purpling. So a lot of times with seed starts, you're going to see discoloration in the leaves and the stems, and it's a deficiency. Like purpling under the leaves is usually a phosphorus deficiency. Yellowing on the leaves is usually a nitrogen deficiency. Here, for instance, is this massive tomatillo, which these guys are very persistently trying to set fruit. They need to be moved out. They're really tall and big. And it'll start by the lower leaves yellowing first, and these are just outgrowing these pots. Not worried about it at all. I'm not even that worried about feeding them, because as soon as this risk of frost passes, these are all getting transplanted and they'll be fine. And you're gonna see more discoloration of your leaves depending on what you started in. Like if you started in a good potting soil that had some fertilizer in it, some sort of nutrition, you might not see much discoloration at all. But if you started in like a seed starting mix or maybe a potting mix that didn't have much nutrition added, when your plants get to this size, you may start seeing that because they've used the resources that they had in that little 2-inch pot. Now the exception is like that plant that I pointed out to you. That's actually a Sart Rollet variety. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's a variety that's very, very high in anthocyanins. It has a lot of color in it. It's got a lot of purpling in the fruit. And a lot of times if you have varieties like blueberries or Black Beauty or any variety that is higher in anthocyanins, you're going to see a lot of purpling on the stem and the leaves, even once you move it out in the garden. That's not a sign of deficiency. If you're seeing discoloration in your plants and you're really close to planting them out, like you're going to be putting them out in a week, I mean, I usually just don't even worry about it. At that point, I'm like, yeah, they're telling me what they need, but I'm about to give it to them. I don't try to go through any great measures because you can kind of freak out and tend to over-fertilize your plants, and probably they're fine until you put them in the ground. All of our seedlings are looking really good. Here's my peppers that we up-potted the other day. Just having their own little pots and not being in competition, you can tell that they're all very happy about that. Check this out. My basil, I have this pot with some basil in it, and it's starting to go to seed here in the greenhouse because it's been so warm in here. We're having the weirdest weather today where it's just like super bright and sunny, and then storm clouds come over and it's cool breeze. Unfortunately, this is very typical of this time of year in Arkansas. That's why we have a lot of tornadoes, a lot of hot and cold mixing together. Oh wow, look at that. That is lovely. Got another one about to open. Several blooms on this. Guys, my garden bed is just completely full of volunteer tomatoes. All in here. I think there's right here is 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are marigolds, but there's a couple tomatoes underneath. 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 14 volunteer tomato plants in this one little section. Okay, I brought you guys back here. There's a lot of weeds that I'll have to deal with, but look at that sunflower. Okay, look at this. Take a look at the amount of blooms on this rose. That is nuts, right? They actually are all starting to get really loaded down with nothing like this one, and they're going to be opening up soon. Oh, here's my yellow rose. This is the Molyneux David Austin, and I'll have to go back and look because I cannot remember the name of this one, but gosh, it's loaded down. I actually have a handful of tomato plants that I've already planted out here in the garden, and I've got a lot of these that are volunteering. Now, most of the volunteers, I'm not going to try to save those. If they do live, what I do a lot of times is when I'm planting, I'll take the cups that I'm taking things out of, and I'll just scoop those volunteers into the cups and just give them away. But the thing is I don't know if those are cherries. I don't know if those are slicers. Either way, you know, I give them away, and sometimes, you know, neighbors or whatever, if they're looking for tomato plants, I just give them to them if they don't care what they're growing. But nobody really wants to plant their whole garden full of something that might, I mean, who would want to plant their whole garden with tomatoes that all might end up being cherry tomatoes or whatever? I just hate getting rid of good plants. It's hard for me. I'm just like, gosh, there's 14 tomato plants growing in this tiny little space. I was actually just noticing here, that's a little potato leaf tomato plant. The plants I intentionally planted, I will go ahead and protect from the frost. I've got about 8 tomato starts that I purchased that were varieties I hadn't started. I'll probably heavily mulch them, and maybe before, we have one night that's forecasted that's gonna be just a couple of degrees below freezing. But mostly what I'm doing with those freezing nights coming is I'm just not planting anything else this week. I'm gonna just wait until the weekend, till we're thoroughly past this little cold snap, and hopefully that's all there is. Now I won't go into the full depth of it because I do have that other video that I will link. But the short of it is that if you are trying to protect plants that you have in, and it's not going to be that much colder than freezing, a lot of times all you really have to do is come down and throw a bed sheet on them before the sun goes down, and that will trap in enough heat from the soil, and it will keep any sort of like frost and the chilly air off the plants. And just make sure you go out there in the morning after the sun comes up and it's warmed up to go out and take the bed sheet off. Like, there's no need to go out and buy, I mean, you can totally use like clear Rubbermaid totes and stuff to create a little greenhouse. You can totally do that, but if you just have like 1 or 2 frosty nights, I mean, you could put cardboard boxes over your plant. Sheets, tablecloths, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be some garden specific material or even clear material just to protect them for a night or 2. The idea is you obviously don't want to cover them with anything so heavy it's going to mash them, but just a little bit of protection from the cold air, something that'll insulate with, because the soil is warm. Usually if you're just having a couple of nights that are just barely dipping below freezing, it's the air and the foliage you have to be concerned about. Now, if it were going to be a really hard freeze, that'd be a different story. Y'all, check out these chards we planted. Are these not just so beautiful? I'm always disappointed with how things are conveyed on video because I just don't feel like the beauty is possible to be captured. Because you can see the brightness of these colors, and that's awesome, but what you can't quite see is the way they look when the sun catches them, and the way they kind of glow a little bit. It's just so, so pretty. It is definitely 100% springtime out here. The trees are all green and filled, the grass is growing, the weeds are growing, the garden's exploding. I am so overjoyed. Our egg basket sure is getting pretty. Sometimes I feel like I'm so like wooed by the farm that I'll just be carrying the camera and be like, look, this is pretty, look, this is pretty, look, this is exciting, it's gonna be pretty, this is so pretty. Oh, to live a life surrounded by lovely things. Truly though, look at these eggs. They're just like varying shades of sea glass. It's just pretty. Just woos me. I am wooed. Thanks for the eggs, ladies. One last rosy peek. I stuck this one rose in the high tunnel just to have something lovely to look at in here. And it is also covered up with buds right now. Anyone who would argue that beautiful and inedible things, which I know technically you can eat rose hips, make tea out of them. So it's not like a useless plant by any means, but it's not like a commodity crop. It's not filling the pantry. But these things have great value. I liked what someone commented the other day. Putting the lovely things in your garden is feeding your soul along with your body. I think that's very true and very wise. I think it is also about to start raining, so I'm gonna get back in the house. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.